At the end of the last video, I showed you the animation, and it was a short little animation with a page turn and a scatterized text. Now, what we need to do is get this ready to use in a project. So what we have to do is export that, and that's called render. Render is where the computer writes a new movie using all the animated attributes we've set. So I'm going to put the cursor to the beginning of my frame here, and I want to show you one thing that's kind of important. Before I export this movie, I want to get it set so that I can see what the length of the movie is. Right now I'm adjusting the timeline indicator by just moving the slider here. I could also hit the minus key on the keyboard to do that. So my movie is actually, it looks like it is 2 minutes long. And so what I need to do is get the end of the work area here set to where the end of the animation is, because as the animation goes, it's just a short little animation here. The page turns, the stuff scatterizes. That's the end. I don't need to render an extra minute and 50 seconds worth of material. So what I have to do is I have to set the end of the workspace to render just the right amount. I know that the last thing that happens in my animation is the opacity of the text goes to 0. So I'm gonna come in to I'm gonna make my timeline bigger. I'm gonna hit this arrow to get to the last keyframe that's animated. So it looks like my animation is 6 seconds and 10 frames. So I think I'll just go to 7 seconds and 10 frames. I'm typing 7.10 to get to 7 seconds and 10 frames. And that's going to put my cursor there. Now I'm going to hit the minus key a few times to make my timeline small. And I'm going to take this small yellow work end area marker, and I'm going to just drag that till it snaps to the my indicator. And I'm holding the shift key down. If you hold the shift key down like I did right here, it snaps to it. Watch. Shift key down, snap. So there's the end of the work area. So now I can just export an animation that's 7 seconds and 10 frames. So to exit a movie, or to export a movie or render a movie, you click on the project panel. Now if the project panel gets hidden, you can go to Window and you can find the project panel right down here with Command 0. So I want to click on my movie. This is the name of my movie. 1080p drop frame template is what I called it. Actually, why don't I just rename it? I'm going to hit the return key and call this page turn animation. So now I have a new name. So I'm going to click on page turn animation. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do composition, add to render queue. So the render queue gets ready. Now what happens in After Effects is if you need to render multiple compositions at one time, you can set them up and then you can walk away and then they'll render overnight and you'll be finished. Let's look at the render queue. There are 3 settings you have to deal with: the render settings, the output module, and the output to. Let's look at the render settings first. I'm going to click on this. It automatically defaulted on mine to best settings. Yours might have selected something different. Quality is best. I'm good with that. Resolution full. I'm good with that. And we don't have to do too much here. What we do want to do is we want to make sure that the time span right here is set to work area only instead of the length of the composition. If we went with work area only, we'll get 7 seconds and 10 frames. If we go with length of comp, we get 2 minutes and 2 seconds. You can also set a custom area by just simply typing in the numbers that you want. So if you only wanted to animate 1 second of a short animation, you could type in the numbers you want. I'm going to hit OK. Let's look at the output module. This is where you select the format that your movie is going to be exported to. This is similar to the export function in Premiere. I'm going to go to a QuickTime movie. You have several different settings here. If I were going straight to YouTube, I would just select H.264. So I've got a QuickTime movie. It has RGB. That's fine. And if I had audio, I could turn audio on. If I needed to resize it, I could, but I'm going to go with what I've got here. Right here on Format Options is where you select the codec. Now this is the encoding type of format that we use. And we click on this, and this is the same as the settings you've seen in other locations. And now here's the thing. When you select a codec to animate, to render your video, if you're going to use your video in Premiere as part of another video, you want to render this with the highest quality possible. The animation codec is the highest quality possible, but the file is so large it's almost impossible to use. If you make your movie as an H.264, like a YouTube movie, the quality's lower, and that's not acceptable. So let me give you several options you could pick. Apple Intermediate Codec. This is a good codec. If you see this on your screen, you could use this. If you have the Avid DNC HD codec, that's a good codec to use. You can use Cinepak. This is a good codec to use. And you can use H.264 from this location. And this will give you a high resolution output similar to the camera video. So I've got to change it to one of these here. I'll pick the animation. I'll pick the Avid codec and hit OK. And hit OK. So now I need to give this a name. I'm going to click on this. And what we usually do is we save these into the project folder. So I have to find where my project is. I know it's on my G drive here. And it is, I'm going to find this. Hold on a minute. I'm almost there. Where did I put this thing? Oh, here it is. I did it on here. Okay, here's my demo. Okay, and here's my project name. So what you do is you export your final video into the folder called After Effects Renders. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Double click on that, and I'm going to save. Now my video is ready to render. It has not rendered yet. It's just ready to render. So in order to render it, you click on the render file, and it begins to write the movie. This might take a long time depending on how many effects you have. So I'm going to render the film, and then when it's done, I'll show you what it looks like. There we go. The render's completed. I'm going to save my project. I'm going to hit the Command H to hide the project. I'm going to browse to disk 6 where I rendered the program to show that we've done this correctly. Open up my projects file. Open up the folder I put this in. Here's my page turn animation. I'm going to double click on this and I'll play this in QuickTime Movie Player. So here's our movie, and I'll play it at regular time. It looks like my scatter didn't work very well here. See, the scatter doesn't work very well. Might have to go in and fix that, but the page turn worked fine, and the movie is rendered out. Now this movie's ready. If I wish to, I can open this up and put this into Premiere and use it as a movie right into Premiere.